I am just a useless prince, apart from sleeping and dazing off, and relying on my parents. I do absolutely nothing, but my princess, she is a ruthless one. On the night of our wedding, she handed me a list. It clearly detailed everyone in the manor from top to bottom, all 37 people. Who belonged to the Empress Dowager? Who belonged to the Emperor? And who were the spies planted by the other princes? It even included their expenses over the past 3 months, and the timing and frequency of their outward messages. The data was incredibly detailed. The logic was as flawless as a Ministry of Justice dossier. With a blank face, I had no idea what she was trying to do. The princess said calmly, "The crookneck tree in the manor's backyard is quite nice. It is just that hanging 37 people at once might be a bit crowded. I did not marry a gentle noble lady. I married a chief justice, the kind who specializes in raiding homes and confiscating property." The next day, the manor underwent a massive staff turnover. The princess brought in a new batch of servants from her maiden home. In just half a day, the manor became perfectly orderly. The previous steward was a distant nephew of the Empress Dowager's head eunuch. The princess found out he embezzled 3,000 taels of silver from the manor. She directly sent the account books to the capital prefecture. That steward was taken away that very afternoon. I heard he will be spending 10 years in prison. I realized my princess truly had some formidable skills without arguing, crying, or throwing tantrums. She simply laid out the rules and let the rules deal with those who broke them. But trouble arrived soon enough. The Empress Dowager summoned us to the palace to pay respects. When we arrived at the inner palace, the Empress Dowager was holding Liu Feiyan's hand, chatting warmly. Liu Feiyan is the daughter of the Minister of Rights, and my nominal childhood sweetheart. I say childhood sweetheart, but we only played in the mud together when we were kids. I had long forgotten about it, but she seemed to remember it crystal clear. The moment Liu Feiyan saw me, she acted like a startled rabbit, looking at me with those deeply aggrieved, pitiful eyes. I nodded, treating it as a polite greeting. The way the Empress Dowager looked at my princess was like looking at a dish cooked without salt. After the formal greetings, it was time for the Empress Dowager and Liu Feiyan's performance. This child Feiyan is truly considerate. Knowing I have not been sleeping well lately, she specially went to seek this calming incense. To be able to share your majesty's burdens is Feiyan's blessing. If only my palace had more people like Feiyan, who know how to care for me. Saying this, the Empress Dowager glanced at the princess. The princess was studying the pattern on her teacup and did not respond. Seeing the princess stay silent, Liu Feiyan could barely hide her smugness. She stood up, holding a bowl of ginseng soup. "Empress Dowager, please drink it while it is hot." Feiyan watched the kitchen brew this all morning. She walked toward the Empress Dowager. As she passed by the princess, she let out a sudden gasp, and her body tilted. The hot soup splashed straight toward the princess. The princess reacted quickly, turning her body slightly, so most of the soup spilled onto the floor. But Liu Feiyan was even faster. She fell hard onto the ground, and a jade bracelet on her wrist, with a loud crack, shattered into pieces. "Princess, that was the heirloom my mother left me. Well done. Killing 2 birds with 1 stone, splashing the princess with soup, and breaking a priceless prop. Her acting rivals the famous stars in the theater." The Empress Dowager's face instantly darkened. How scandalous. These words were directed at the princess. The princess acted as if she did not hear it, simply using her handkerchief to wipe her skirt. Liu Feiyan was still sobbing there. Do not blame the princess. It was Feiyan's own carelessness. The Empress Dowager patted her hand with a look that said, "You are just too kind-hearted." Then, the Empress Dowager aimed her spear at me. "Prince Anne, look at this. This is your good princess. Arrogant and unreasonable. She cannot even tolerate a gentle child like Feiyan. Resorting to such petty jealousy. I have seen this since I was a child. It is nothing more than putting her daughter-in-law in her place by elevating another family's daughter." Just as I was getting ready to smooth things over, the princess stood up and walked to the center of the hall. She gracefully bowed to the Empress Dowager. "Imperial Mother, there is something suspicious about this matter. The jade bracelet Miss Li just shattered is no ordinary item. It appears to be the jade sea tide, the favorite piece of Empress Xiaoxian from the previous dynasty. Before I entered the palace, I once read the Imperial Household Department's records of royal tributes. It was recorded there that the jade sea tide bracelet was made of warm jade from the southern sea, with flawless translucency, and was utterly priceless. After Empress Xiaoxian passed away, this bracelet was stored in the Imperial Treasury and never appeared in the world again. Miss Liu said this is a relic from her mother. But your mother was merely a second-rank noble lady. How could she obtain the beloved possession of a former empress?" As soon as these words were spoken, the entire room went dead silent. Liu Feiyan's lips were trembling. The Empress Dowager's face completely changed. Secretly hoarding an imperial item is a capital offense. This is far more serious than spilling a cup of ginseng soup. Liu Faiyan was in a total panic. I do not know. This bracelet was truly given to me by my mother. Then it seems the problem lies with Lady Liu. I beseech your majesty to thoroughly investigate this matter. Treasures from the inner treasury leaking out of the palace is a matter of grave importance. Behind this, I am afraid there's an inside thief, colluding with outsiders to steal from the state treasury. If it is not strictly investigated, it might shake the very foundation of our nation. Good heavens! She directly escalated a petty harem squabble into a national security issue. The Empress Dowager's face turned green. If she does not investigate, it is a cover-up. If word gets out that the Emperor cannot even secure his own household treasury, where is his prestige? But if she investigates, she will alert the 3 judicial offices. The commotion would be too big. She originally wanted to show the princess who is boss, but instead the princess put her directly on the roasting spit. She cannot possibly say, "Do not investigate," because I was the one who secretly took the bracelet out to give to Faiyan. Then she might as well stop being the Empress Dowager. Enough. Such a trivial matter. And you are making such a racket. What a scandal. She wanted to use her authority to suppress the matter. The princess remained unmoved, still maintaining her strictly businesslike demeanor. Please quell your anger, Imperial Mother. A state has its laws, and a family has its rules. This matter concerns the royal dignity and the majesty of the law. As a daughter-in-law of the imperial family, I have a duty to uphold royal decency, her watertight words. Completely block the Empress Dowager's and Liu Faiyan never dreamed that a simple frame-up attempt would cause such massive trouble. She looked at the Empress Dowager, her eyes full of pleas for help. The Empress Dowager took a deep breath, and her tone softened a bit. Faiyan is young, perhaps she misremembered. That bracelet merely looked similar, that is all. Logically speaking, the princess should have taken the way out offered to her and said Imperial Mother is right. Then this matter would just be swept under the rug. But the princess did not play by the rules. She smiled faintly. What Imperial Mother said. I also hope it is just a misremembered detail. However, just to be on the safe side, one propose that the Imperial Clan Court, the High Court of Justice, and the Ministry of Revenue jointly conduct an inspection of the inner Imperial Treasury, the storehouses of every palace, and all assets under the names of the various princely manors. We must execute a thorough inventory, verification, registration, and cataloging. During the inventory period, all storehouses shall be sealed, and no one is allowed to enter without authorization. All account books shall be completely frozen. As her voice fell, the hand the Empress Dowager used to grip her chair had its fingernail snap right off. At this moment, only one thought crossed my mind. It is over. This woman is crazy. She actually wants to turn everyone's personal wealth inside out and expose it all to the sun. I am just an idle prince, yet I seem to have married a ruthless woman who can pierce a hole in the sky. Who would have thought that a petty harem framing trick would cause the Imperial Court to tremble? At the morning assembly the next day, the Imperial censors stepped forward one after another, petitioning to strictly investigate the inner treasury and rectify the administration. The words they spoke at the assembly, compared to what the princess said in the Empress Dowager's palace, cannot just be called identical. They were literally word for word the same. The royal treasury is the lifeblood of the nation. For giant rats to run rampant within is simply outrageous. My imperial brother sat on the dragon throne, his face turning pale. This was definitely the princess's doing. She did not even need to show her face. The censoring officials willingly acted as her pawns for their own performance metrics. Imperial brother had no choice but to decree the formation of a royal asset audit committee. As for the person in charge, imperial brother glanced at me and unceremoniously sold me out. Good heavens. You are afraid to offend your mother, so you throw your little brother under the bus. I am just a useless prince who lies flat all day, making me investigate the Empress Dowager's secret treasury. Are you trying to get me killed? The princess's father, Grand Tutor Zhang Wenseng, stepped forward. He proposed that the princess assist me. The father and daughter arranged everything perfectly for me, and Audit Storm was thus triggered by a single bracelet. The princess was the one truly calling the shots. I was just a figurehead mascot. The princess gathered everyone in the courtyard. She had servants bring out over a dozen large chests, all filled with brand new account books, abacus brushes, and ink. She also distributed an audit workflow manual to everyone, detailing the scope of the audit, the standards, the procedures, the deadlines, and the persons in charge. It was written crystal clear. From how to open the storehouse doors and handle the goods, to how to verify the accounts, and how to divide the personnel into groups. It was so detailed that daily progress reports were required. It was stricter than a military pledge. This audit will last for 3 months. All participating personnel will eat and live here. No contact with the outside world is allowed, and all accounts will use a cross-verification system. One group inspects, another group verifies. Within a group, once any deficit or error is found, it must be reported immediately. Those who know but do not report will face the same punishment. During the audit period, everyone's salary will be tripled. After the audit concludes, based on your contributions. His Majesty will grant additional rewards. After this combo punch was thrown, everyone's faces at the scene completely changed. She offered the carrot and wielded the stick. Want to slack off? The people behind you are waiting to take your place. Want to cover things up? You have to ask if your verifier agrees. Now, no one dared to drop their guard. I watched the princess calmly assign tasks and suddenly felt an indescribable aura radiating from her. She did not look like a princess, but rather a strict taskmaster. On the very first day, the target was the Empress Dowager's palace. The Empress Dowager was so furious, she smashed several teacups. The head mammy with the dark face opened the storehouse doors. And then, they witnessed what true professionalism was. The personnel brought by the princess wore uniform attire, working in pairs. One person counted, the other recorded. There were even people sketching the items nearby. That scene was stricter than a property confiscation raid. The Empress Dowager's expression went from initial anger to absolute shock and finally turned into panic. She did not expect the princess to be playing for real. Looking at the mountainous piles of account books on the desk, every single book could represent a person's entire life and fortune. These were not account books. These were the death warrants written by my wife. My wife was precisely that quiet king of hell for half a month straight. The entire imperial palace was shrouded in an atmosphere of heavy tension. Palace maids and eunuchs walked on tiptoes. The masters of the inner harem were all fearing for their lives. Every palace had its own secret treasury, and murky accounts were the norm. Now, with the princess's audit team here, nothing could be hidden anymore. When the princess handed a portion of the accounts to Imperial Brother, Imperial Brother's face looked as ugly as if he had seen a ghost. Bastards. All of them are bastards. My Imperial Treasury actually has a 30% deficit. These parasites, I will execute their 9 generations. And this is only the tip of the iceberg. I silently complained in my heart. This is just the general ledger of the Imperial Household Department. The small kitchens of each palace, the procurement offices, and countless other rotten accounts have not even been tallied. I did not dare to tell him that the princess had privately estimated it for me. If we add up all the deficits, the royal family's total assets might have been hollowed out by half Imperial Brother through a tantrum and slumped onto the dragon throne. Am I a huge failure to be played by these servants? For a complete fool, your majesty attends to myriad state affairs daily. With these trivial matters, it is inevitable to have some errors. The state treasury is empty. The borders need military pay. The river channels need deck repairs. Which of these does not cost money? I actually thought the inner treasury was abundant, and I could rest easy. But it turns out, it was all a lie. Seeing him like this, I felt terrible too. Imperial Brother is not a bad person, he is just too soft-hearted. Being coaxed by the Empress Dowager and the ministers, he always thought he was a ruler of a peaceful era. But the princess's account books were like a basin of ice water, pouring over him from head to toe, leaving him freezing cold. Imperial little brother, tell me the truth. That princess of yours, what exactly is she trying to do? Digging all these things up, what good does it do her? When she does things, she only recognizes the rules, not the people. In her eyes, if the calculation is wrong, then it is wrong. It does not matter whose account it is. She is truly a capable minister. Treat her well. Such a person must never become an enemy. I nodded. Would I dare make an enemy out of her? With just a stroke of her pen, she can turn the imperial court upside down. Submitting an account book is enough to make His Majesty shed tears. Such methods are more formidable than an army of thousands. The audit storm made me famous in the capital. I became the renowned pretty boy who relies entirely on his wife. It kept Prince swaggering around the imperial court. I used to be a transparent nobody in the court, but now, when the court ministers see me, they are all incredibly polite, greeting me with flattering smiles. Some even send gifts to our manor every few days. Precious horses from the western regions, luminous pearls from the eastern sea, sent over as if they cost nothing. The storehouses of our manor are almost overflowing. I felt a bit guilty and went to ask the princess. The princess was verifying the last batch of accounts. Without even raising her head, she said, "Your Highness is an imperial clansman, not a commissioned court official. You are not bound by the code of conduct for officials. Receiving seasonal gifts is not bribery. Even His Majesty cannot say anything about it. Most importantly, all these items will be registered and catalogued and incorporated into the manor's assets. In the future, they will be ready for any inspection." I understood immediately. She is generating income for me, using the gifts sent by others to enrich our own little treasury. Moreover, all procedures are legal and compliant. No one can find a single flaw. Truly brilliant. I comfortably embraced my role as a kept pretty boy, drinking tea and receiving gifts every day, watching others bow and scrape before me. This is much more satisfying than toiling away myself. One day while I was strolling on the street, I ran into Liu Fayan. Her face was completely haggard, looking at me as if she had seen a ghost. The jade bracelet incident made her family the target of public criticism. The Liu family is now living with their tails between their legs. She tried to hide the moment she saw me, but as for me, I am one who holds grudges deeply. I took the initiative to walk right up to her. "Miss Liu, long time no see. By the way, that jade sea-tied bracelet of yours, Has it been investigated thoroughly? Where exactly did it come from? I deliberately touched her sore spot. That is what you get for bullying my wife. Looking at Liu Fai and appearing as if she were about to faint. Haha. Being a pretty boy who relies on his wife's power to bully others is truly damn satisfying. As the audit neared its end, the results were quite shocking. The uncovered deficits, embezzlements, and bad debts added up to fully tens of millions of taels of silver, equivalent to the Imperial Court's tax revenue for 5 years. The entire Imperial Court experienced a massive earthquake. The Empress Dowager was the one in the storm who suffered the heaviest losses. Her secret treasury was completely confiscated. The trusted aides she had planted everywhere were also mostly uprooted. She absolutely hated us couple to the core. One day the Empress Dowager suddenly issued an edict, hosting a banquet at Signing Palace. The moment I heard it, I knew it was nothing good. The Empress Dowager was clearly seeking revenge. The princess was very calm, but my heart was in my throat. The Empress Dowager surely came prepared. She would not try to reason or talk rules with the princess anymore. What she was going to use was her status and filial piety. Open schemes are the hardest to counter. When we arrived at the palace, the Empress Dowager sat in the main seat, smiling a fake and hollow smile. As the banquet began, there was singing and dancing. But everyone knew this was just the appetizer. After 3 rounds of wine, the Empress Dowager finally spoke. Emperor, I have been dreaming of the late Emperor often lately. The late Emperor said he feels uneasy. The young people nowadays increasingly do not understand the rules, disobeying their elders and disregarding filial piety. As soon as these words came out, everyone's gaze drifted toward the princess intentionally or otherwise. The princess was unhurriedly peeling an orange, as if she did not hear a thing. The emperor gave a dry laugh. My face turned completely green. This is definitely a trap. Words alone are useless. Filial piety is not just something you speak of. It must be shown through your actions. Princess Anne, your servant is here. I ask you, ever since you married into the imperial family, have you ever personally washed your hands to make soup for me? Have you ever personally massaged my shoulders and back? Have you ever come to my palace morning and evening to pay your respects? 3 aggressive questions in a row. This is clearly using the weight of filial piety to crush someone. The princess indeed had never done these things. Busy auditing accounts every day, how would she have the time? But since the Empress Dowager asked, if she denies it, she is deemed unfilial. But the moment she shows weakness, the Empress Dowager will force her to admit fault and rightfully reclaim her authority, framing the entire audit as an ignorant daughter-in-law causing a scene. I was nervous to death. The princess cannot possibly pull out the imperial legal code again. This concept of filial piety, the law has no jurisdiction over it. Facing the Empress Dowager's questioning, the princess remained very calm. She bowed respectfully, replying to Imperial Mother, I indeed have not done these things for you. The corners of the Empress Dowager's mouth curled into a smug sneer. She was just waiting for the princess to admit it. But the princess continued, I believe that filial piety has lesser filial piety and also greater filial piety. What is lesser filial piety? What is greater filial piety? Paying daily respects and serving medicine. This is lesser filial piety. Assisting the monarch, stabilizing the state, filling the state treasury, ensuring that people live in peace and happiness, saving the ancestral temple from the peril of ruin, allowing Imperial Mother to enjoy eternal peace and wealth. This is greater filial piety. I am auditing the inner treasury without resting day or night, exhausting my mind and energy, precisely to practice this greater filial piety. That is why I temporarily neglected lesser filial piety. I know my fault. But if you make me prioritize lesser filial piety and neglect greater filial piety, causing the foundation of the nation to shake, your subject dares not do so. Her words were resounding and firm. Everyone present was completely stunned. I stared at her dumbfounded. Good heavens. I thought she was doomed. But she directly rewrote the definition of unfilial and packaged the highly offensive task of auditing into the ultimate act of filial piety toward the Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager's face turned red and white, left utterly speechless by the princess. She could not possibly say, I do not need your greater filial piety. I just want you to massage my legs. That would be too petty and lacking in dignity. The Empress Dowager was trembling with anger. She had prepared a bellyful of difficulties, only to have them dismantled by a single sentence from the princess. Moreover, it left her with no way to gracefully back down. She was not willing to concede, and said through gritted teeth, such a glib tongue. Even if your words make sense, the admonitions for women states, a woman should take gentleness and obedience as her foundation. Your actions are ruthless and entirely devoid of womanly virtues. How do you respond to that she just resorted to personal attacks? The princess smiled. Imperial Mother, the admonitions for women you mentioned was written by Lady Ban of the previous dynasty. However, the founding emperor of our dynasty personally inscribed the new rules for women. His Majesty's imperial calligraphy is still enshrined in the imperial ancestral temple today. The very first sentence of the new rules for women is exactly: women of our dynasty should be strong and independent. Above, they can bring peace to the nation. Below, they can manage the household and not be dependent on others, and should not consider ignorance as a virtue. Using the founding emperor's words to gag the Empress Dowager, the Empress Dowager's face completely turned the color of pig liver. She lost completely and utterly on the matter of filial piety. She lost to greater filial piety on the matter of womanly virtues. She lost to the founding emperor's ancestral teachings. The princess did not argue with her. She simply stood at the absolute peak of morality and law, looked down upon her from above. Looking at my wife, I only had one thought in my mind: educated people are truly terrifying. Especially a woman who knows the law and is highly educated. She is simply invincible. After this incident, the Empress Dowager's vitality was greatly drained. The claimant illnesses and auditing to see anyone concluded perfectly and secured a massive amount of wealth for our manor. I thought that life would continue peacefully like this. I was still too naive. I forgot that a quarter dog will jump the wall and a desperate person will go mad. Late one night a month later, the sky outside the manor was suddenly lit by blazing flames. A squad of imperial guards rushed in, led by the commander of the Nine Gates, Zhao Xiang, with a stern and dark face, holding an imperial edict. By the mandate of heaven, the emperor decrees: Princess Anne of the Zhang clan has colluded with maternal relatives to plot a rebellion. She is ordered to be immediately thrown into the imperial prison, awaiting trial. Prince Enzi Jingyu shall reflect on his mistakes behind closed doors and must not leave without an edict. Respect this. I was completely stunned. The princess rebelling, what a joke. She is too lazy to even step out of the manor's backyard. What kind of rebellion could she be plotting? I rushed forward. General Zhao, there must be a misunderstanding here. Your Highness, this humble general is merely following orders. These were found during the search of your manor. See for yourself. He had someone bring forward a chest. Upon opening it, inside were several dragon robes and an imperial seal. My head spun with a loud buzz. This was the most vicious and lethal framing. This was meant to put the princess to death. A deadly trap that offers no chance to turn things around. The princess was taken away. From beginning to end, she did not say a single word. Only right before she was taken away, she turned her head and glanced at me. Her gaze was incredibly calm. I knew this was the Empress Dowager's final counterattack. She wanted to use the simplest and most brutal method to destroy the princess, because by reasoning and playing by the rules, she could not win. So, she simply threw away all reason, directly flipped the table, and used her absolute power, using pure authority to crush us. The main gates of the princely manor slowly closed behind me. I was placed under house arrest. The princess was thrown into the imperial prison. It truly felt as if the sky was falling. I paced around in a frenzy. As a useless prince, I neither had political connections, nor did I possess military power. I could not even send a single message out. Just when I was in total despair, an old servant secretly slipped an envelope into my hand. Your Highness, this is what Her Highness the Princess handed to this old servant a few days ago. She said, if one day she was no longer in the manor, I should give this to you. With trembling hands, I opened the envelope. Inside was a key and a slip of paper with only 3 words written on it. Go to the study. I rushed into the study, searched for a long time, and finally under the desk where the princess usually sat, I found a hidden compartment. Inside there was no gold or jewelry, no military tallies or secret codes, only a thick dossier. I opened it. The first page contained a line of elegant, yet chillingly cold words regarding the Empress Dowager, the Minister of Rights of the family, and their associated factions. Investigation report and contingency plan on suspected treason. I froze. I flipped to the second page. It was evidence of the Empress Dowager's brother Duke Zhengguo colluding with the enemy state. The third page was about Minister Liu selling government offices and titles, and a list of his planted cronies. The fourth page detailed accounts of how they embezzled the state treasury to secretly train a private army. Page by page, case by case, the evidence was irrefutable and watertight. The timeline started from 3 years ago, which means even before the princess married me, she had already been investigating these people, marrying me, auditing the inner treasury, and bringing down the Liu family. All of this was not done on a whim. It was all completely within her plan. She was not just doing a job. She was investigating a case, a massive heaven-shaking case. At the very end of the dossier was a long-drafted imperial edict. The content was granting Prince An full authority to handle this case, with the power to mobilize the 3 great military camps in the capital, and the authority to execute first and report later. Stamped at the bottom was a seal. It was the late emperor's personal seal. Next to it was a line of small text: the late emperor's secret edict. Seeing this seal is like seeing the emperor in person. I finally understood. That wife of mine, she is not a chief justice, nor an imperial censor, nor the king of hell. She is, damn it, A blade left behind by the late emperor. A blade specifically forged to purge traitors. And I am her scabbard. She had long anticipated that the Empress Dowager would jump the wall in desperation. She even got herself thrown into the Imperial prison on purpose. Only in this way could she lure all the enemies out of hiding. And then let me pull in the net. I took a deep breath. My wife has already spoon-fed the meal right to my lips. How could I not eat it? I picked up the dossier and strode toward the manor gates. Men, open the gates for this prince. This prince is entering the palace to cleanse the court of treacherous officials that night. Blood flowed like rivers in the capital. Holding the late emperor's secret edict, I mobilized the 3 great military camps and locked down the entire capital. Duke Zhengwu's manor had its entire family thrown into prison. The Minister of Rights Liu family was raided and confiscated. Anyone whose name was on the dossier's list. Not a single one escaped. I led my men and stormed into the Imperial Palace. When Imperial Brother saw what I held in my hands, he was so terrified he almost fell off the dragon throne. He never knew the late emperor still had this trick up his sleeve. I threw the dossier to him. Imperial Brother, see for yourself what your beloved Imperial Mother and her bunch of relatives have been doing. After reading it, his face was ashen, unable to speak a single word. Finally, I led my men to Signing Palace. You know everything now. It was that bitch princess, and was it not? The princess is merely executing the late emperor's final decree. Restoring order from chaos, that is all. I have plotted and calculated for a lifetime. Yet in the end, I lost to a little brat. She said, pulling a dagger from her sleeve and pressing it against her own neck. Remember this. I did not lose to you, nor did I lose to the princess. I lost to the late emperor. Saying that she slashed hard. Thus, the rebellious faction was completely wiped out. When dawn broke, I went to the Imperial prison to pick up the princess. She was sitting in her cell, acting as if it were not the Imperial prison, but her own study. I walked over. She looked at me and called out, "Your Highness, were you afraid?" Saying I was not afraid would be a lie. Even now my calves are still trembling. She smiled. This time her smile was different from before. It will not happen again. From now on, Your Highness can do whatever you want to do. No one will dare to bother you anymore. On our way back, we sat together in a carriage. I looked at her. Who exactly are you? I am Zhang Wencheng's daughter, and also the one personally chosen by the late emperor to rectify the wrongs, she said. In his later years, the late emperor had already realized that the maternal relatives were too powerful, becoming a threat too big to eliminate, but he no longer had the energy to deal with it. Therefore, he chose the princess, who was just a little girl back then. Because she was smart enough and calm enough and ruthless enough. He gave her the authority to investigate. And the final thunderous measure, handing it all to her, and had Grand Tutor Zhang teach her political strategy, and taught her the laws, all for this very day. Even having her marry me, the most non-threatening idle prince, was also part of the plan. I was speechless for a long time after hearing this. So my getting married was all just part of someone else's script. I was just a tool. Then you, towards me, were you also just using me? The princess fell silent. The carriage was very quiet. After a long while, she gently rested her head on my shoulder. My body stiffened and I dared not move. I did not know what she wanted to say. I only knew that from that day on, my fierce and decisive princess started reading some leisure books, like complete recipe collections and gardening journals. Imperial Brother, after this great upheaval, matured a lot, becoming a true emperor. As for me, I continue being my useless prince, still dazing off every day, watching people argue and walking birds. It is just that by my side, there's one more person. A person who will peel oranges for me and remind me to put on clothes when it is cold. In the capital, the rumors about me living off my wife grew even more numerous, saying I am the ultimate pretty boy, relying on his wife to rise up. Hearing this, I just smiled. What the hell do you know? You're all just jealous of me. The days of being protected by a big boss, is that a joy you could ever understand? This kind of kept life, I can happily live it for the rest of my life. Hehe.